These days, it seems like every cycling coach or triathlon coach is giving out strength training workouts to try and help you to see better performance. Well, I hate to break it to you, but most of that is, especially if it's based on the research, is ill-founded and misdirected. While they come from a great place, they're actually not a lot of considerations when it comes to strength training for performance, and basing what you're doing just off of the research is missing the forest for the trees. In this short video, I'm going to surmise what strength training for performance is to help you come in as a better, smarter athlete, to make better decisions either for yourself or your athletes, and to get real performance gains instead of injuries, burnout, or just wasting your time in the gym every single winter. So if you're ready to get some performance, let's get to it. So the problem we often have, here's your coffee, tends to be that we're carrying a lot of fatigue, right? We get to the early afternoon, we have our coffee, we tend to feel a bit run down, and this is where the strength training will often fall off. Cheers. This is where it becomes instrumental to move from a strength training program for just general health and fitness and well-being to a strength training program for performance. And I had a recent interaction, and we actually did a podcast, episode 187, on what strength training for performance is. So you can check that link out down in the description below. Now, here's the thing. When we're looking at strength training for performance, we're looking at how you're working, what type of movements you're doing, and what movements are at the edge of your movement competencies right now, and what's going to really move the needle for you. This includes looking at recovery times between sets. If we're looking for a neuromuscular really change, so how the nervous system is recruiting the muscle or the muscle itself. And this is really where a lot of well-meaning coaches who are cycling coaches or triathlon coaches miss the boat, in that they think lift heavy stuff, and they are giving you really heavy weights in order to see you progress. Well, that's just taxing the neuromuscular system in a way that's going to detract from your cycling and triathlon training. This is a real coffee, not a prop, so I'm going to take a drink. And this is the hard part. A lot of it means that we have to leave our ego at the doors and go based on how we feel that day. And while it can be great and feel amazing to get into the weight room and push a heavier weight, 2.5 pounds or 2.5 kilos more than the week before, in fact, when you focus on how your body is moving and listening to what the body is telling you as far as what it can or can't maintain or handle on that day, and instead of focusing on the weight, focus on how you're moving, you're going to see much better progression over time. But it's not instantaneous. Much like your fitness from cycling takes anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks in order to show itself, and thus why in Training Peaks performance management chart, it's a 42-day CTL. It's one of those things where you have to show up consistently and do the work. Now here's the other part of this. Real coffee, we're not going to edit that out because I do need it. Here's the real part about this is that you have to show up and consistently do the work. And most people give up after 8 to 12 weeks with their strength training. Now, why is that? Why do most people give up at 8 to 12 weeks? Well, number one, that's what the research shows. I only need 8 to 12 weeks. Yeah, okay, sure. But you have to understand the research. And the fact of the matter is that the research is focusing on heavy weights. And 8 to 12 weeks tends to be about when the tissues and the nervous system need a break. So while, yes, we do need heavy weights, it's actually different than what most of us tend to think. And in fact, it is a lot better for your long-term progression to have these ebbs and flows as you go through the year that counterbalance what's going on the bike. So in fact, the heavy weights that we tend to do, yes, we'll do some in late base, early build, but the heaviest weights by RPE, and air quotes, tends to be in your mid-season when you're doing maybe one strength training session every 7 to 10 days. But it is driven by perceived exertion, and that is going to be the basis for everything performance-based. We have to take into account where the body is, where the athlete is mentally on that day at that time. And if we listen to the technique and how the athlete is perceiving the movement to move, as well as the movement quality, that's where we're actually going to get the performance. I'm going to finish my coffee. I'll be back with you guys in a minute. So when should you do your strength training if you want to get better as a cyclist? Well, that's going to really depend. It can be either before you're cycling or after you're cycling. And the prime determiner is what are you trying to focus on that time of year. If you're trying to focus on strength gains and improving the tissue, like the muscle mass and things of that nature, then we totally want to do the strength training first. If, however, your primary target is to increase your FTP, your VO2 max, your sprint power, we're going to want to do the bike first. Pretty basic, pretty simple, and it follows the rule of whatever is important should be done first. That's also why one of the, I guess you'd call it, the keys to a strength training for performance program is going to be doing some type of core work first. In fact, we start off every single national team training with our core work. We do a dynamic warm-up, including the McGill crunch variation, a bird dog, and a side plank done for performance, which you can learn about here on the channel. Now, it's not rocket science. Training for strength training for performance is actually pretty straightforward, but there's a lot of fancy people out there who quote a lot of research, which is easily 5 to 10 years behind what we're doing and have been doing here in the field, and they're going to convince you that you need to lift heavy stuff for many, many reps or many, many sets. But when you pay attention to RPE, movement quality, and your freshness on a given day, the results you're going to get are going to astound you. You just have to show up at least 2 days a week, maybe 3, and do the work consistently with a focus on quality. And the thing is about strength training for performance is these rules are not unique to cycling or triathlon. In fact, these are rules that apply for American football, soccer, or football everywhere else in the world, hockey, baseball, everywhere you go. Strength training for performance is about how you do the exercise, your perceived exertion on the day. And of course, there are some fancier metrics or more advanced metrics that we can look at adding to measure your progress. But this is the root of it all. It's perceived exertion, how you're moving, and then being consistent. And frankly, for most cyclists, 2 to 3 days during your base period and 1 to 2 days during your late build and peak season are going to be more than enough to get you the results you need. But how you program, so like we just talked about, if it's important, do it first. So core work should be at the beginning, not to the point of making you tired, but to priming the body to be able to perform. That's why we go with a variation of the McGill Big Three, a bird dog, a McGill crunch, and a side plank variation, which is going to help the riders to be able to progress. So not only do they get faster here on the velodrome, they're faster on their mountain bike, their road bike, or whatever discipline tends to be. It really is not rocket science. It's incredibly simple. And this is where all of the newfound technology is great, but if you can't read the athlete or the person in front of you or your own feelings for the day, the sensations, your energy level, your mental capacity to actually do technical work, you're not going to be able to see results over the long term. Sure, 6 to 8 weeks you might see some gains, but here in the strength training community we call them newbie gains, because you pretty much do anything. You look at a weight for the first 6 to 8 weeks, you're going to see some type of return. But after that, if you're not doing the right amount of work or the right type of work or managing your energy, recovery, and adaptations, then everything's going to fall off. And that is why most cyclists tend to stop their strength training at the end of base. They've pushed too hard, they've been too sore, they're not getting ride quality, and mentally they're just tired and physically they're beat up. That is how most bodybuilders feel when they go through. Same thing with some powerlifting. And this is exactly why programs like 5x5 are completely inappropriate for cyclists. You have to be able to understand the tissues demands, the neurological demands, the metabolic demands, as well as the cardiorespiratory demands of your sport, and how to not sport specificity in your strength training, but rather to sport balance in your strength training. We've got to get better postures, better positions, and better ability to deal with different types of forces on the body so you can go out and violate them when you're on the bike. Now, we don't want to go too crazy because that can lead to injury, but we do have to modify what you're doing. Now, this is also where things like the stability ball and balance training have come to be very popular, saying that it's sport specific because it's going to help you. Well, working on a labile force like a stability ball and trying to get you to be able to hold yourself up and steady might seem like a great core workout, but there are in fact better exercises which will better serve you, teaching you to create stiffness where you need it and get movement only in the places that you need. So instead of using something like that, I would do a front plank drag through without getting any shifting or moving. Or maybe we'll do a bird dog variation, working on getting some nice trunk stability. Or maybe we'll take you into a beautiful, we'll do it this way so you guys can see, a beautiful true hip airplane where we're getting all of the range of motion in through the hips. And you can see I'm not warmed up, they're challenging. These types of things and understanding what you actually need out of your strength training to perform on the bike are really important. Things like the stability ball, at first glance, if you don't really understand, seem really appealing. I know that because I made that mistake very young in my coaching career. But in fact, when we really get you into that hip airplane and get you to be able to do many reps with great technique and to hold positions and to keep stiffness, the power on the bike comes way better. You see, I also have that mentality of I have to get it right. And this is where strength training performance can really help you. Failure is a part of progression, but not with heavy weights. It's trying to get the movement. That is what true athletes do. Every Olympian, every high-level professional that I've worked with, they have the mentality of, I need to learn how to create the tension or stiffness in my body in the right amounts to get the movement where I want. That is strength training for performance, and that is what we want to focus on as cyclists and triathletes. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. In less than 10 minutes, 12 minutes, I have explained to you exactly what strength training for performance is and is not. If you'd like to learn more about it, I have a number of courses, or if you want free stuff, we've got 188 different podcast episodes as of the recording of this on the Strong, Savvy Cyclist and Triathlete podcast. We've got hundreds of videos for you here on the YouTube channel. And if you'd like to learn more and have it in a structured fashion, I've got a number of courses that you can enroll in, including strength training for cycling success, strength training for triathlon success, both of those available on the Training Peaks University, as well as the strength training for cyclist certification. There's also a 12-week core program for coaches, which you can purchase as well. Each one of these is going to allow you to learn what strength training for performance is. You don't want to watch, you want to do something cheaper or something easier. My first bestseller, Strength Training for Cycling Performance, the book, is available for you as well over on Amazon in Kindle and in paperback. So you have all different types of options. You can hear, you can see, you can watch, but most important, you have to do. If you don't practice and you don't toy around a little bit, how are you ever going to learn? So I'm hoping you'll join me here on the HVTraining YouTube channel, because over the coming months, I have lots of great content here to go a little bit deeper. I'm not just going to give you exercises and tell you, hey, this is going to increase your power. I'm going to explain the mid-level, helping you understand how to apply it, when to apply it, as well as the progressions that you should or shouldn't have moving into it. But again, if you really want the deep answers, you got to pick up one of the courses. So until next time, remember, train smarter, not harder, because it is all about you.